Now recognizes Mr. Chairman Westerman for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Hageman, and thank you again to the witnesses for being here. Mr. Pamplin, we've heard some pretty outlandish claims that are from opponents of H.R. 9621 that the bill would somehow open the door to the shooting of pinnipeds by recreational hunters. Do you have any response to that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the question. I just want to start by just acknowledging I understand the public's concern about pinniped predation and sometimes voicing the frustration about the MMPA, the frustration of natural resource managers, the ability to intervene, and they're saying like, well, maybe we can help. But the fact is, the way this bill is written, and something that I'm very supportive of, is that the authority would go to the agencies and the tribes. So removals would be conducted humanely by professional staff of the state fish and wildlife agencies and the tribes. The bill speaks to the ability to contract entities. And in that instance, I think it would be that, for instance, the Western Washington Treaty Tribes bringing in the Northwest Indian Fish Commission potentially as their entity, or the Lower Columbia Treaty Tribes delegating their authority to the Columbia Intertribal Fish Commission. On our end, we have not had discussions with, but I could imagine partnering with USDA Animal Wildlife Services, which is a federal agency that has the expertise and authority for dealing with all kinds of wildlife conflict scenarios. So this would all be done by professionals, and some this would not be done by members of the public.
Thank you. The poster that is being put up behind me shows a common haul out site near the estuary at Astoria, Oregon. While not in Washington, can you explain what pinniped management can occur in this stretch of the Columbia River where significant levels of predation have occurred?
Thanks for the question, Mr. Chairman. That's outside of the geographic area of Section 120 that was amended in 2018. So the authorities that we would have to rely on if we needed to intervene in that particular situation would be a 120, where we would need to individually mark animals and then demonstrate that those individuals are consuming salmon, and then ask NMFS, the authority, to remove that animal. Other avenues that are not used, Section 109 has never been used, which would be a transfer of management authority to the states, or Section 101, 103, 104, where you ask for a waiver of the take moratorium. And those, in my understanding and my career of following MMPA issues, that's been used less than 10 times and usually are not successful. One application that I'm very familiar with, because I co-authored it, we submitted when I worked for the Macaw Tribe in 2005, and that application is still being reviewed by NMFS. It's 21 years later.
You mentioned Section 120. The next poster shows where the current authority under Section 120 ends. There are roughly 100 miles between that point and the mouth of the Columbia River. What challenges have fishery co-managers faced in the Columbia River without the ability to manage predation in this stretch?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman, and the figure is very helpful. Well, two main areas that jump out to me. One is under 120F, the geographic area that removals can occur is above River Mile 112, which is the I-205 bridge, and then in the tributaries to the Columbia. What we have in the case of the example Congresswoman Gluesenkamp-Perez had noted about the concerns about the Cowlitz River is the animals are actually hauled out in the main stem of the Columbia, which is off limits for 120F. They're going up and foraging into the tributary, but they're hauling out outside of the area that we could do removal.
How would the geographic scope covered by this bill improve state and tribal efforts to recover salmon populations?
Thank you. It would allow the states and tribes to submit a permit to address areas throughout that region.
So NOAA gave a presentation earlier this year and stated that, quote, while these MMPA authorizations to intentionally take predatory sea lions have helped reduce predation at a small scale and in certain areas, they have not been particularly effective at achieving the overall goal of balancing the requirements of the ESA and the MMPA, end quote. Why is that?
Yeah, I think that really comes down to the root of this issue is the balancing of the ESA and the MMPA. The team had displayed the charts of harbor seal stocks, for instance, and they showed them essentially at the carrying capacity. I don't have similar charts for salmon. Salmon are imperiled. They're listed as endangered or as threatened. And having some additional tools to continue to the suite of recovery actions that we have going, but also to address the unchecked pinniped predation is very important, and appreciate that this bill allows for that opportunity.
What makes this exchange important is that the debate over salmon recovery and pinniped management is not simply a disagreement over wildlife policy. It is a question about how government should balance competing environmental responsibilities while making sure the people who depend on healthy rivers and fisheries are not left without workable solutions.